Today, we got Chris Logan in the house, or should I say, virtually in the house. Chris is the mastermind behind flipping properties without ever changing out of your PJs. We talking virtual wholesaling. He's got tips, tricks, and a two-step formula for you to kickstart your wholesale business from anywhere. And stick around to the end because Chris is also giving away his 5 baby steps to getting started. Before we dive in, welcome to another episode of the REBallers show. I'm your host, Vee. If you ever like any of our videos and found value in this channel, can you do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button? By subscribing, you help to grow this channel and allow us to help more people to reach financial freedom through different real estate investing strategy. Thank you and enjoy this episode. I'm sorry for this interruption. I've been asked a lot about passive investment, and I understand that there is nothing passive about being a landlord unless you can find a great property management company. So if you own an Airbnb, a vacation rental, or a short-term rental, and you are looking to free up your time, contact our team at Buzz Vacation Rentals at 281-549-8432 or check out our website at www.buzzvacationrentals.com. Thank you. This episode is brought to you by Jet Lending. For over 20 years, Jet Lending has been helping real estate investors succeed. They offer 100% financing so you can be in at $0 at closing. I can always count on Jet Lending to fund my deals. If you're looking to fund your next deal, contact our friend over at jetlending.com. This episode is brought to you by National Real Estate Insurance Group, a national independent insurance agency specifically for real estate investors. I personally use NREIG for my investment properties. They offer a low monthly payment option to help you to lower your cash out of pocket when buying an investment property. If you're looking for insurance coverage for your flips or your rental, reach out to them. You can click on the link in the show descriptions, or you can reach out to Jules at 816-946-8443. Hey, Chris. Oh my God. So glad to have you here. I've been looking forward to our conversation. It's been so many years since we saw each other face to face, and you had a new addition in your life and your family, you and Heather. I mean, tell us about what it's like to be a dad.
Becoming a dad is one of the most blessed things that you can do. It's amazing to watch your little baby go from just an idea to in the belly to all of a sudden coming out and being a new member of the family. But it also comes with its challenges too. Going from, being kind of come as you go, my wife and I just picking up and going whenever we want, to all of a sudden now we have this new little life to care for. It's been a adjustment, but it's such a blessing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Okay, so I asked every guest on the show this questions about success. What success mean to you? Because I believe that, it's like it helped you to draw out your roadmap, right? So has that changed the definition of success to you before baby and after baby?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I would say that my definition of success is having the time and resources to create memories for my family, right? I used to be all about like, what car do I want to get at this point, or what X, Y, and Z, right? But now really it's about, where can we go on vacation? Where can we create new memories as a family? So I feel like it goes from shifting to inward to outward, right? You stop focusing on like all the things you want to get, all the things you want to do for yourself, and then you start thinking about what type of experiences can we celebrate as a family and create memories that'll last forever. So that's what we're all about.
Isn't that amazing how a human being can have so much power over you?
Like you just
Oh
don't
my
even
gosh.
think about yourself anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Heather and I were talking about that at the end of the night last night, and we're just like, man, this little human can kick our butts, but at the same time, we just love him so much, and it's just such a blessing every day to see the different changes. But yeah, he changes your entire life.
Okay. Now, it's also super important. You guys, you guys are like, in my opinion, are role models. You
Thank
have
you.
the discipline to be entrepreneurial, to stay on your course, but you also have the discipline to stay really healthy. Like you guys have always been in shape. And I was like, I watched you guys on Facebook and I was like, how did Heather get so lean after the baby? So what's your secret?
You know, it's funny. Like we tried to maintain a consistent workout schedule before the baby, and you know, what I've found as I've gotten older, I'm going to be 42 this coming up year, right? What I've found is that if you don't maintain consistency, then it's really easy to get off the wagon, right? And to just stop altogether and be like, oh, I'm just tired from the day. I don't feel like it. You know, it's just been a long day. And so now what we do is we make sure to get it out first thing in the morning. So it's done, over with for the day, and you can tackle the day. As new parents, sometimes like I have to watch the baby while she works out, and then she has to watch the baby while I work out. But we always try to make it work and make it a priority. And then we also watch what we eat too, you know, like we like to have fun just as much as the next person, right? But everything in moderation. And I guess my thing is, if you let things go too far, then it's too hard to get back on the saddle, right? So we try to just stay consistent, and that was something that we've talked about, you know, before we had the baby. We're like, you know, we want to continue to eat right. We want to make sure we stick to our workout schedule as much as possible. Some days require more flexibility than others, and let me tell you, in the beginning, in the first 6 months, when we were being woken up every 2 hours, it was hard to go out in the garage and work out because we work out from home, right? But the days that it's hard are the days that you really can't afford to give up on those days, because those are the days that matter most. Because if you don't give up on the days that are hard, the days that are easier are going to be much easier to do it, and you won't give up on those days either. So it's, for us, it's really been about commitment and discipline, because we know what happens when we get off the wagon, you know?
Totally agree, because, you know, I have those days too. I don't have many days with hangovers anymore.
Yeah.
But it's more
That's
of
a
like,
distant memory for us.
right. It's more of like, you know, trouble, lack of sleep due to like lots going on with my head about business, which direction to go. And then I have, you know, wake up the next day feeling like tired, and I really just didn't want to work out, you know?
Yeah.
But every time I'm so glad I pushed through just like you. But at the end of the workout, I think we always feel better, and we're glad we
Always
did it,
feel
right?
better. Isn't that fun? Yeah, because you kind of feel like it's really hard to get going, but then once you get out there and you do it, you know, you can really be happy for yourself and pat yourself on the back, because you've accomplished something big for the day, right? So if you got out and did a hard workout, everything else today becomes much easier. So
sometimes I do this. I would say, well, let's do one set, and then, you know, and then I'll say, okay, I only got 5 more sets, so let's just do 3 more.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like bargaining with myself to push through that workout. So I know we're going to talk about real estate today. So how do you think that discipline that you have translate into business? Because I think for as long as I've known you, you've always stayed on course. Like you don't stray off and do something else or get fancy or this or that. You really hone in and stay on your course. So tell us, you know, your disciplinary there, do they translate into business, or just how does it work for you?
No, that's such a great question, V. Such a great question. And I'll bring it back to a conversation that I had with a friend of mine who's a personal trainer. And he said this one thing to me. And this one thing that he said, it just hit me so hard. It really made me think about everything that I do throughout my life and how I do it, right? And he said, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So if you slack off in one area, that means you're going to do that in other areas. If you're really disciplined in some areas, you're going to be disciplined in all areas, right? And so I really thought about that. And when it came to applying the same level of dedication to one thing as I do other things, and that's really is what kept me going, right? And then there's a book here that I recommend. It's this book here called The One Thing. This book was a game changer for me when it comes to focus and making sure I'm always putting the right things first, right? So as a business owner, our first and foremost priority for the day is generating revenue, right? Like revenue in first position, doing that first, and then everything else comes second. But a lot of people, especially a lot of new real estate investors, when they get into the business, they're focused on all the different ways you can make money in real estate. They're focused on 15 different marketing channels, 15 different exit strategies so you can, never lose a deal and all these things. But what I find is when people spread themselves so thin, they don't do any deals at all. You only have 100% of focus. And if you divide that between 4 things, you're only giving each thing 25%, when each of those things really requires 100% of your effort to get the results you want. So this book was a really big eye opener for that. And it's something that I always keep coming back to. There's a saying in the book that's, what's the one thing I can do today that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? It's something like that. But it really gets you that focus question.
You're so right. And I realized that, when I was really focusing on something, that thing was really good. Yeah. When I started to get distracted and feel like, oh yeah, now I need to do this and now I need to do that, and they all suck.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Could not agree with you more.
And so I somewhere between last year and earlier this year, I had to reorganize everything and restructure everything. Yeah. And, to like, okay, what am I going to focus on for this time frame? Yeah. And then move on to the next thing. Yep. Yeah. So let's talk about your operation. What do you mainly do?
Yeah, so my operation mainly is overseeing everything to make sure everything goes okay. So we have a small team. We used to have a really large team, right? We used to have like 35 people on our team, and we scaled that back dramatically because we realized it just wasn't the type of business that we wanted, right? So we scaled back to a smaller operation to where it's me, Heather. We have an acquisition manager who's responsible for talking to all of our sellers, making offers, and we have a disposition manager that sells all of our deals to our cash buyers. So that is the dream team and how we have it set up. I also have an assistant that helps out with marketing, so I don't have to worry about any of those tasks or anything like that. And then we have a call center manager who oversees our call center in Bangladesh. And so he recruits cold callers for our team, and then he also places cold callers for our clients' teams.
We're going to dissect every component of your business, your operation today.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sure. So go for it.
Let's start with the key components. For what is it appropriate to label your business as virtual wholesaling?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. All right. So let's define that just for the audience. Maybe we have new people who never done a deal before.
Yeah.
Let's define what virtual wholesaling is. And I'd like for you to go into what are the key components to be successful. And then we can go down into each of those. Sounds good?
Yes. Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. So, we wholesale houses from home anywhere in the country. There's a few different markets that we really laser and focus on, but really this is a business that can be done from home, right? So when my wife and I first got started in the business, we started wholesaling houses locally. And so for those who are listening, I know you have a real estate podcast, but there might be some people listening who don't know what wholesaling is. Wholesaling works like this. It's very simple. You make an offer to a seller who has the worst house in the best neighborhood. Let's say your offer is $150,000. You write up a purchase contract for that. You then sell that contract to a cash buyer who wants to buy that property for $170,000. And when you close, you make the money in the middle, right? So you make that $20,000. So if you think about it, you're like a glorified matchmaker, right? You can do it over and over again, month over month.
Love it. So glorified matchmaker.
Yep. So that's exactly what it is. So you're not flipping properties, you're flipping pieces of paper and making a fantastic income doing it. And the reason we do virtual is because, most new real estate investors, they struggle to close their first deal because they're only focusing on doing deals locally. But the truth is, like, all markets are not created equal, and the best deals aren't found in your backyard. And so with our virtual freedom formula model, what we do is we identify the best territories across the country. We have a 2-step process for that. I'll share that with you here in just a second. And and again, that allows us to wholesale houses from home anywhere in the country. Would you like me to share the 2-step?
I do.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I want to, let's make sure they listen a little bit longer before we go into the 2-step here.
Sure.
Because that's breaking it down, right?
Yeah.
So now, before we break it down, let's talk about the big picture. What are the important key components of the business of a virtual wholesaling operation?
Yeah. So what you have is acquisitions, right? Which is talking with sellers. It's a fancy word for talking with sellers and making offers, right? Then what you have is marketing, right? Which is responsible for generating leads. So the acquisition reps have people to talk to, right? That's really important. Then what you have is property sales or dispositions. So these people are responsible for selling all of the contracts that the acquisition rep secures, right? And then lastly, you have transactions, which is mainly communicating with the title company or the closing attorney in that state and making sure the property gets transferred easily from the current owner to our end buyer.
Yeah, I can easily see our conversation go on for 3 hours today, honestly.
Absolutely. I could talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
So now let's talk about your 2-step. So we're talking about now that someone want to go and start a wholesale operation, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to identify a market and you got to identify, all right, now you can talk about the 2-step. I'm excited to hear about it.
Perfect. Yeah. So what we've found after doing deals all across the country, we have found that there was a 2-step formula behind all of the most successful territories that we've been in. What do we define as a successful territory? It's easy territory to get deals and it's easy to sell those deals too, right? So you're not really like struggling because it's a rural type of area or no cash buyers around. You're never wondering where your next buyer is going to come from. It's a very popular area because a lot of people are moving in and out, right? So we have a 2-step system for this. So the 2-step system works like this. So first thing you want to do is you want to go to Google, right? And you're going to type in the area that you're considering starting in, right? And then the population, okay? Now, the population, what I found, needs to be a minimum of 250,000 people. The reason for that is if your area or your territory has less than 250,000 people, then chances are it's going to be a very rural type of an area where you may not have a problem getting sellers to say yes, right? But you're going to have a big problem when it comes to selling those deals, right? So we target an area with a minimum population of 250,000, right? So if it has that, that's check mark number 1. The second thing that you want to look at is you want to go to Google again and you want to type in the area that you're considering, that same area, and then you want to type in median home price. Now, for the listeners who don't know what the median home price is, if you picture houses on a timeline and on the far left, you have your really inexpensive houses around $50,000 or so. And on the far right of that timeline, you have multi-million-dollar properties. The median home price is the one in the middle. So it's the house that most everybody can afford and is the most popular type of house. So we want that median home price to be a minimum of $200,000. Because again, what we found is if you go below that 200,000, what you're going to fall into is the more rural areas, and it's going to be harder to sell those deals. So if you have a territory that has a minimum population of 250,000 and a median home price that's at least 200,000, that's a powerful combination where you're not only going to be able to do deals consistently there, but you're not going to have an issue with finding buyers for those deals.
What are the reasons that makes it harder when the median price is less than 200,000?
So another reason it makes it harder is because the population is probably not going to be as high, right, as 250,000, which means that there's going to be fewer people moving in there, not as much demand, and it may take you a lot longer to sell those properties, even if you could find a buyer.
I was thinking more on the line, then you let me know if I'm wrong, is
Sure.
Let's say if the median price is 200,000, you likely would probably buy that house at 50, 60 or something like that, and it would be hard to resell because they probably can't get a loan.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't find a cash buyer, then other people can't get a loan for it.
No, for sure. That's a big reason. And then on top of that, your assignment fees are not going to be, you're probably going to be looking at assignment fees of around $3,000 to $5,000, which for people brand new just getting started, they're like, I'll take that all day long, right? But the issue is if you could choose between two areas, right? Both areas require the same amount of effort. One area you can make $3,000 to $5,000, and another area you can make $15,000 to $20,000. Which one would you pick, right?
Sign me up for 15-20.
Exactly. What if those areas were easier to make money than the other one, right? So it's not all territories are created equal.
Okay, let's get some excitement here.
Yeah.
I hear all the time that wholesalers, sometimes making 50, 100,000 assignment fee. Mm-hmm. How true is that?
It's possible. I think the highest one we've had has been 75,000, but what we have found, there's two reasons why you are making assignment fees like that, right? The first reason why you're making assignment fees like that is the seller has no idea what they have. They're extremely motivated. They're at the point that they just don't care, right? Mm-hmm. And they're just giving you the property basically, right? That's a very, very, very rare case to find. Very rare case to find, right? So the second group of reasons why I feel like where those assignment fees come from, those come from value add opportunity. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a house that's sitting on a vacant, that's sitting on a larger lot, right? And the house is in such terrible condition that it needs to be torn down, right? And let's say local builders in the area are actively buying up lots in this area a lot, right? They're buying a ton of, there's a pattern of them buying vacant lots in this area, right? Well, if that builder can build 2 or 3 houses on that lot, right? And your offer to the seller is based off their property, then the opportunity there is going to be so much greater because the builder is not looking at it based on that one property. They're looking at, I can build 3 homes there, so I can pay a lot more money for that lot, right? So that's what we've seen. And then also when you wholesale multifamily, so if you're wholesaling more so like triplexes, like 3 to 4 units, you can see assignment fees like that. But it really all comes down to the motivation of the homeowner, and it comes down to the value of the property in that area.
So what you're telling me, Chris, is I could sit here. Well, I'm in Houston.
Yep.
But
fantastic market. Houston is a fantastic market. I love Houston.
It's an amazing market.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
But if I decide, let's say, move to Costa Rica, I can still run a wholesaling operation in the U.S.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. One of my coaching clients right now is from England, and so she's wholesaling from England.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because are there different law regulations, different way of doing things than here in the U.S.? Yeah.
So every state is passing different types of wholesaling regulations, right? So realtors are really pushing hard for there to be more regulation on the wholesale industry, right? And so a lot of different states have laws being put in place to where you can do it a certain way here, you can't do it a certain way here. But when it comes to regulations, as far as like wholesaling outside of the country, inside the country, I mean, you really just need a stateside LLC, some type of entity, right? And then from there, you'd want to talk with a local accountant or CPA just to fill in the gaps, make sure you're crossing all your T's and I's. But, at the end of the day, there's no difference. There's no difference from me doing it here in Florida, wholesaling a house in Georgia, than there would be if I was sitting in Costa Rica right now by a pool and wholesaling a house in Georgia. It's the same exact process.
It sounds much better when I'm sitting in Costa Rica, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right.
And that's the flexibility that's amazing about this. So,
right. But okay, do you recommend to start in someone's backyard? Or let's say if I live in New York and real estate is expensive in New York, should I consider starting in New York, or should I consider starting somewhere else?
I would probably pick a different place. So there's 2 types of markets, right? There's a primary market and a secondary market. And I know it sounds complicated, but at the end of the day, if you think of primary market, that's like the really popular places like Los Angeles, California, New York, right? Like they're really, really popular places. I mean, wholesaling in those areas is possible, but the issue is it's not going to be very consistent. You're going to have much larger assignment fees there because there's more zeros on the houses, right? But at the end of the day, me personally, I would pick an area that was much easier to do it. And if you follow that two-step with a minimum population size of 250,000, minimum median home price of 200,000, and I would even cap that median home price at like 450,000, right? So you're looking at the median home price between 200 and 450,000 because that's a great range for flippers. That's a great range for buyers that like to buy and hold. And that's where the majority of the buyers are, right? You can still do deals in those other areas, but the competition is going to be much higher. So your cost of marketing is going to be greater and you're not going to be doing as many deals consistently. So that's why I focus on these lesser popular markets. So you can do deals consistently and also make good money in each deal that you do.
All right. So here I am. I'm working a full-time job. I probably have, 5, 6, 7,000 aside to do this wholesaling thing. How do I start? What do I have to have in place first?
I love this. This is a fantastic question. Let me give you a little bit of context for my answer. So before you were talking about the different parts of the wholesaling business, and I probably scared some people off saying acquisition, disposition, marketing, transaction, right? When you're first getting started, you're doing everything yourself, right? Totally doable. Everybody starts there. That's exactly where I started. When I first started, it was my wife and I, and we were doing everything ourselves, right? As you grow, you can start handing some things off, but that's not where most people start. Most people start square one in the beginning, they're wearing all the hats. Now, to answer your question as far as what you should do, you have $7,000 to invest and you are just getting started. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're starting with $7,000 or $70,000 or $700. It really doesn't matter to me. Yes. So I recommend everybody to start at the exact same place, and that is by picking up the phone and cold calling, right? Getting sellers cold calling. The reason why I love cold calling is because it keeps your overhead low in the very beginning. You can get a dialer for roughly $150, $179 a month, right? You can get a list for around $500 and skip trace it and put phone numbers to that list so you can call that for sellers. And that right there, right? Just cold calling for 90 days straight is going to give you a 10-year education in sales and follow-up. So it builds valuable skills that you can then use later on to when you start to invest more in marketing and guarantee you're going to get the type of return you're looking for, right? So if you start out with cold calling, it makes everything else easier. And you start out yourself, you start making the calls, right? Then eventually after you get your first deal, you can then reinvest 20% of what you make into having someone make the calls for you. And so that way you're talking to sellers and making offers and focusing on the most important tasks. And then from there, it's simple to grow. You can just add more people if that's what you want to do. But that is the course that I recommend for everybody just getting started because, again, it keeps your overhead low and it puts you in contact instantly with a lot of sellers.
Cold calling.
Yes.
Okay. Where do I get the list to start cold call? What kind of criteria? Just touch base. We don't have to go into detail, but maybe just, the big picture.
Yep. So there are 2 lists right now that I highly recommend for people to call, especially in the market that we're in right now, where maybe interest rates a little bit higher and a lot of people are retiring right now, right? So the 2 lists that I recommend people to start with is number 1, the tired landlords list. So what is that list and where can you get it? You can get it from Batch Leads. So the tired landlord list is great because it is landlords, so people that own rental properties, and they've owned those properties for roughly 10 to 15 years or more, right? And so these people are tired of tenants.
I was one of them last week.
So you know. So you're probably tired of tenants and toilets, and you're like, these. So, and they're just at a point where they probably bought, having bought these properties, 10, 15 years ago, those properties have increased in value a lot, right? And just where we're at in the market right now, people are like, I missed the peak. And so I think I'm ready to cash out, right? I tried to time the market. I didn't do it. And so I just want to sell it, right? So those are great because there's not really a lot of emotional attachment to the properties and they're all thinking in terms of money, which makes the conversations easy, right? Then the other type of homeowner or the other type of list that I'd recommend targeting is the senior owners list. Again, you can pull this inside of Batch Leads. And what this is it's a list of homeowners who have owned their property for at least 20 years or more, right? And they are just at the stage where there's some type of senior owner flag on the property. Maybe they're receiving senior benefits or something like that. But they're at the stage where they're looking to downsize. They've bought their house a long time ago. It's built up a lot of value. And that house is probably going to be the most expensive thing they could ever own. And
I hear baby in the background.
Yeah. Working from home. You said, how's your life different having kids? There you go. That's what it is. So that's
but interrupted on a podcast. That's how it happens, right?
Absolutely. So that's real life, baby. That's right. That's what it is.
That's right.
So the senior owner list. So they've owned the house 15, 20 years. They bought it at a really good price. The house has gone up in value. It's the most expensive thing they're ever going to own. They're at a stage of their life now where they just want to sell that, cash out, and retire, and maybe move in with the kids. There was a study that said 10,000 people every single day, I think for the next 20 years or something like that, are going to be retiring, right? It's the largest retiring generation ever. It's the baby boom generation. And 10,000 people a day are retiring. So that right there is just opportunity.
That's amazing. All right, so let's talk about cold calling. Should I be concerned about, the new regulations? Because I think there's more regulations that come out in the last year or two.
Yeah.
In comparison to the past. So should I be concerned? How do I protect myself? Because I don't want to do anything illegal.
Another great question. So this is something that I have investigated thoroughly. We hired what I believe to be the best attorney in the country for telecommunications law. And I had him do an entire breakdown of my business with everything that we do. Yeah. And basically, cold calling is fine, right? And the reason why, it's because we're not calling people and trying to sell them something, right? So we're calling to see if they want to sell something to us. So it doesn't fall, because that's the arrangement, it doesn't necessarily fall under the strict telecommunications laws that apply to like B2B calling or businesses calling consumers, right? And so with that being said, it makes it to where you don't really have to be too concerned about calling sellers. And as long as you're respectful, can someone sue you for whatever they want to sue you for? Anything? Sure. But we've been doing this for a long time. I would say we've probably been cold calling for the last 7-8 years. And I've only gotten one letter that was threatening us with a lawsuit. I sent it to my amazing attorney, and he said, this is a lawsuit entrepreneur. They have no basis, and you can either respond and pay him off, or you can just ignore it. And I asked him what he thought I should do. He said, you should ignore it. So I said, okay. So I ignored it. Nothing came out of it. And that's it. It's just really like anything that you do, right? You have to know the do's and don'ts. You have to know what you can and can't do, right? And cold calling, it's something that's been around for decades, and I don't think it's ever going away. Sure, has some of the processes changed that make it a little bit tougher to reach people sometimes? Sure, but there's a strategy in place for that too, right? So you just need more phone numbers, right? And it's really important now to have a good phone number reputation than it ever has been before. And so what is a good phone reputation? So let's say you sign up for a dialer, right? I do not recommend making cold calls from your cell phone, by the way, right? So unless you want to come up spam likely to your friends and family, then you don't want that, right? So you want to get a dialer like Batch Dialer, right? And what is great about Batch Dialer is you can purchase multiple phone numbers. And so what a dialer does, it dials a bunch of numbers really quickly so you can get in touch with owners faster, right? That's all it does. So in your dialer, what you want to do when you go to get a phone number, you want to enter that phone number into Google, and you want to see if it's tagged with any type of bad telemarketing campaigns, because phone numbers get recycled, right? So if like a company out there who's like scamming people, right? Like those, I can't remember the one that was really popular, but anyway, let's say a phone number was part of a bad telemarketing campaign. That company went out of business. The carriers, so the people that employ Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all those people. So the people behind the scenes, they're the ones that are like recycling those phone numbers. And so when they send that phone number to a carrier, at that point, it's going to either be clean, which means it's not going to have any history, or it's going to come up as someone else flagged it, like RoboKiller or something like that. And when that happens and you're calling with that number, it's going to make it to where people are not going to pick up the phone because it's going to come up as scam or spam likely. But if you check a phone number and make sure you're buying a phone number that doesn't have any history like that, then you're going to reach enough people. And there's also a certain number of phone numbers that you need to have to make sure that you're not coming up with scam likely. I typically recommend people, if they're going to be dialing for 2 to 3 hours a day, you want to make sure to have 10 phone numbers, because you only want to have a maximum of about 100 outbound phone calls going out per phone number per 24 hours. And that covers you for like a 2-hour dialing session each day.
Look, I came in with a list of questions for you. Yeah. And now as you're talking, I think I just came up with another 10 questions.
That's okay, we'll knock them out.
All right, so cold calling. Let's talk about VAs, because in my opinion, I would prefer a U.S. call, right?
Sure.
Someone to call me, talk about buying my house. What is your experience with VAs? And we're talking about, earlier you mentioned Bangladesh, was it? Right? Yep. Maybe from the Philippines. Obviously, we can tell that they're not native. They're not from here. Has that been a challenge for you? And how did you guys manage to overcome that?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, that was a challenge for us because we didn't really know where to recruit. But the reason we recruit from Bangladesh is, not many people know this, but Bangladesh is like Mecca for call centers. It's pretty much where they started. There are a lot of English universities there, and that's where we recruit our call center reps, right? And so they're already there. They're already learning the language, learning the culture and all that. And so when they get on the phone talking with a seller, it's fine and it's natural for them, and they have very minimal accents because they're already learning the language over there, right? And so the challenge is, other countries that you'd pull from, maybe the Philippines or somewhere else, maybe they're not as up on our culture as this other location is, right? And so when a seller says something or is sarcastic or says like a joke or something like that, maybe they don't know to laugh at it, and that's what makes it a little awkward. Right. And so it's really important for wherever you're getting your call center reps, you want to make sure that they understand the culture and they speak fluent English, and there's like little to no accent, because when they start having an accent, people are just mean, unfortunately, and the calls don't go very well. The leads, they don't get as many leads, and you're just not going to get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah, because I personally used to answer all of my calls, the seller, the lead, the incoming lead calls, and I would even get questions sometime. Like, they would ask me where I am, and I mean, I'm here, and I'm quick enough to reference things. So
well, that's totally fine, right? Because here's the thing: sometimes sellers think they're talking to someone that's not from here. But let's say you have an accent and you're from here, and they question you on that. You know enough about the business and the industry. Even if someone has just taken a real estate class, they know enough to make the seller be like, "Oh, okay, my apologies."
Yeah.
Because, if you have taken a course, watched a video, if you've sat through a seminar, you know more about real estate than 95% of the sellers are going to be calling anyway, even if they own their own house.
Right. Yes. So what you're saying is, whether VAs overseas or local, the key is to try to position yourself as the professional.
Always.
To get us through that hurdle.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the path here. I'm trying to get started and cold calling. Let's talk about some statistic. How you said I should be making calls for 2-3 hours per day. How many calls should I be? Give me some numbers, some data. How many people should I reach? What's the good? How do I know if I'm making progress or not? Obviously, if I'm buying a house, that's progress.
Sure. So the goal is more so about quality conversations, right? So if you have, there's some stats I could give you on a dialer, but I'm not sure if those stats would make sense to our listeners without actually seeing the dialer itself. So I'll just break it down a little bit more, right? So the goal is quality conversations. And what we have found, the most effective thing to track is the number of leads to a contract. right? So the amount of leads you have to get, the amount of people that have to say yes before you get, before you get a deal, right? And what we have found with cold calling is roughly it takes anywhere between 25 to 35 leads to get a contract. So you have to find out what your numbers are. Sometimes, you sit down for 2 or 3 hours, maybe you're skilled and maybe you get 3 leads in that one day. Maybe the same person sits down and they're not as skilled because they're just more new and maybe they get 1 lead, right? So then you just have to factor out that time. But on average, what I've seen for the average person that sits down and cold calls for 2 to 3 hours a day, if that's all they do and they just do it 2 to 3 hours a day, it'll take them roughly 90 days to get their first deal.
90 days. So that's my expectation is spend money on buying the list, spend time to make the calls, and then if I do it right, 90 days from now, I'll get the first contract.
100%.
Okay. So let's say 90 days forward, now I get a contract. How do I find who's going to buy this house?
So this is a great question because this is where most wholesalers struggle. Okay. So because of that, I think the better way to go about doing it, is what I call the FYBF method, right? FYBF means find your buyer first. So what you want to do is you want to go out and you want to grow a buyer's list. Where do you grow a buyer's list? Facebook groups are an excellent way to start. They're free, and you're going to see a lot of people commenting on other wholesalers' deals in those groups. You're going to see a wholesaler list a property for sale, and you're going to see people commenting on that. I'm a buyer, I'm a buyer, I'm a buyer. You're going to reach out to those people, have conversations with them, and just see if they're still actively buying, right? If they are, you're going to put them onto a list. Right? You're going to find out where they're buying, the types of house they're buying, the price range they're buying, and the type of buyer they are. You want to know if they're a cash buyer, a wholesaler, or a realtor, because you have a lot of different types of people commenting on those posts, right? All 3 of those types of contacts you want to add to your list, okay? And then once you have an idea of what your buyers want, then you go out and do marketing to get the deal, and you bring them what they want. And when you do that, wholesaling becomes so much easier because you're not spinning your wheels trying to sell a property. You don't know if you have a buyer, but you're going to do deals, right? Because the truth is, most wholesalers, when they first start out, you've heard, that saying, if you have a good deal to sell itself, where most people who are just seeing start out, they don't know what a good deal is, so how can it sell itself? But if you do FYBF, get the buyer first, find out what they want, bring them what they want, becomes so much easier.
So what it sounds to me is, this is a lot of work, Chris. I have to spend 2-3 hours per day cold calling people. And now I have to spend maybe another hour searching online to build my list of buyer.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming I'm going to have to call them as well.
No. So all those conversations can be done through Messenger, can be done through email, but it's all up to you. Some people say, I prefer to talk with people over the phone because that's how I build the best rapport, right? And then you could do that. But in the beginning, I didn't do that. In the beginning, I just had conversations through Messenger. Because here's the thing, right? There are a lot easier ways to get deals, right? But the reason I do not recommend that is because most people are not ready for them. Most people, let's call a spade, they suck on the phone when they first start, right? So most people are not very good on the phone. So they're asking for disaster, right? If they're not very good on the phone and they go to a marketing source where they're paying $300 a lead or $250 a lead, but they're getting instant leads, right? They're not going to know how to handle those conversations well to get a contract. They're not going to follow up in the right way. They need to build that hustle muscle in the beginning. And one of my mentors shared with me a quote that I share with everybody who I talk to who's getting into real estate, and that is, hustle is a season, not a lifestyle, right? So you're starting out, you're wearing all the hats, you're doing everything yourself, you're making the calls, you're building the buyers list, you're doing all those things, but it's not where you're going to stay. You're laying the foundation for something that's going to last and something that you can build off of and eventually remove yourself from so you can live the lifestyle that you really want, right? But all businesses, I don't care what it is that you're going to start, right? You have to have a long-term view of it. You can't view it like, oh man, I got to spend 2 or 3 hours, because if that is the view, I don't recommend people to start. I have some people that come to me and they say that. They're like, Chris, I've spent 2 or 3 hours. Oh my goodness. I recommend them to not even start, because they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to do the activity necessary to get the results, and they're going to come back to me and be like, Chris, I changed my mind, right? So the mentality to have is it's temporary, it's not permanent, and I'm laying the foundation for the lifestyle that I dream of.
All right, so I'm going to throw something on the opposition at you.
Sure.
Okay.
Bring it on.
So buying a house sight unseen. What the heck?
Yeah.
I mean, how am I going to sell this thing that I haven't even seen yet?
Yeah, great question. So there's really 4 things you need to know in order to be able to make an offer to a seller sight unseen, right? Because this was one of the biggest mental things that we struggled with when we first got into virtual. We were local and switching virtual, right? The thing that you need to do is you need to get the 4 pillars of motivation. And if you have the 4 pillars of motivation, then you can confidently make offers to sellers and know that it's going to be the right offer that you're going to make because you have answers to all the questions that will lead up to that number, if that makes sense. I'll explain. So when we're talking to a seller, we want to get the 4 pillars of motivation. So the 4 pillars of motivation is price. So we want to know how much they're asking for the property, right? Timeline. We want to know, when are they looking to sell? You know, how soon do they need to sell, right? We want to find out the motivation. So what's their burning why behind needing to sell, right? And that's the one we want to spend the most time on. And then lastly, we want to find out the condition of the property. So I'm going to walk you through some questions really quick that you could ask that you could get this information and feel confident making an offer. So the first one, when it comes to price, how much are you hoping to get for your property, right? What we have typically found is if the seller is asking 80% or less than the Zillow's estimate. So if you put that property address into Zillow and you see the Zestimate, so Zillow's estimate of the property, if they're asking 80% of that value or less, then that's check mark number 1. That's a potentially fantastic deal, right?
That's a valuable advice.
Yes. So this is big, especially if you're cold calling. You're talking to a lot of sellers. How do you figure out if it's a deal or not, right? How do you know which one to spend more of your time with or not, right? The second thing is when it comes to timeline. So when they're looking to sell. So if that seller is looking to sell in 90 days or less, that's smoke and lead checkbox number 2, right? So if you have that combination right there of the 80% or less and within 90 days, we have found those sellers, it only takes roughly about 10 of those leads to get a contract. So digging into the condition, asking the seller, have you done any remodeling to the kitchen or bathroom in the last 5 years? And if they say, no, we haven't, then the house is probably it's an original condition. So you can assume like it's just a standard renovation for the property, right? And then you ask them about the age of the 4 big ticket items, which is the age of the electrical, the air conditioning, the roof, and then the plumbing or septic, right? So if there's any issues with those or any of those need to be replaced, those can also affect your offer as well. But if you have the answers to all of those, then you can put together an offer and make that confidently to the seller.
That's amazing. Let me tell you a story of a wholesaling scenario. So obviously, we got a lead. We came and make the offer. And because we went to the property in person, we noticed that it's sitting next to a railroad track. And I think when a house sits next to a railroad track, it doesn't do well.
Yeah.
Long story short, some wholesaler got a contract, and I was shocked how much that wholesaler sold that property for. I mean, I don't know the final price.
Yeah.
But the deal was blasted out, way higher. I think that the sellers said they got $50,000 more than my offer. And obviously in the picture, no way, nobody can know that it's next to the railroad track. I'm glad for that seller and I'm glad for that wholesaler, but I do feel sorry for the end buyer, whoever ended up with that property. I don't think they're going to get what they think they get out of it. My point is, being wholesaler, you can't see everything. Like buying virtually. How do you prevent yourself from getting in trouble? I suppose. I mean, the seller already know, right, that you could back out of the contract if XYZ, right?
So one of the things that's very valuable to use is Google Maps. Google Maps is amazing because you can literally virtually walk up and down the street, right? So you can see if there's a commercial shopping plaza right across from the house. You can see if there's a cemetery behind the house. You could see if there's a commercial strip center to the left or right or a gas station next to the property. technology has just gotten to a stage where it's really easy to see all that stuff. Many years ago, that stuff didn't exist, right? And it was a lot harder. But now, just with the technology that's around, just by asking the right questions to the seller and then checking out the local area on Google Maps, I mean, you can pretty much see and find everything that you need to find. But one of the things that can really help is we partner with local realtors as our boots on the ground in the area, and they take all of our pictures of properties. They'll oversee showings, right, for our cash buyers. But these realtors, when they go and they take pictures of our properties, they can also let us know local area information that could really help us. For example, we had this deal where we were working where we had it was a deal in St. Petersburg, Florida, right? So it was in a smoking hot area.
Yeah.
This was a historic type of an area, right? But the area was gentrifying, meaning it was the demographics in the area was changing, right? And they're starting to improve the area and make it nicer. We found out that there was a technology campus that was being built 2 blocks over from our property.
Cool.
We would have never found that out had it not been for our realtor. And so we found that out. We asked her how much that she feels that would impact the price. She told us. We went ahead and adjusted our price. We sent it out, and we made a fantastic profit on that deal. I want to say we made like $57,000 on that deal. And the reason we did that was because of our local boots on the ground, right? So just because you're virtual doesn't mean you don't have people helping you out locally, making sure that you're aware of everything going on. I always love downloading that local intel, like, are there a lot of new homes being built in the area? How is the street? Are there a lot of boarded up houses? Those things are just great. And so if you take that info combined with the questions that you ask and your own research, I mean, you can put it all together.
So just because you're not there doesn't mean you're blinded.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's great resource. Reach out to the local realtor. They are a great resource. Any advice on how to find good local realtor?
Yeah. So if you go to a Facebook groups, right, the real estate investment Facebook groups, and you put in there, say, hey, I'm a new real estate investor looking to network with an investor-friendly realtor, right? Or if I'm a new real estate investor in the area, looking for a realtor that could be boots on the ground for me in this market, right? Who do you know, right? You're going to have a lot of people slam those comments, right? And what you're looking for is the realtor that gets recommended 3 times, right? And the one who gets recommended 3 times, that is the realtor you're going to go with because they've been recommended 3 times. You don't really, multiple people are saying this is a good person to work with, so you can go that route.
That's another nugget that the audience needs to take notes on.
Yep. 100%.
All right. Okay, so what are the things that I need to be watch out for as the new wholesaler? Where things could go wrong. What are those things that I need to watch out for?
Yeah, so I mean, in the beginning, the reason I love wholesaling, right, is because wholesaling is there's little to no risk involved in wholesaling. It's very tough to lose money in a wholesale deal. You have to almost try to lose money in a wholesale deal, right? And so that's the reason why I recommend everybody, if they're just getting started in real estate, they want to start with wholesaling first because it's the safest way to get going and the way you can get started and make a substantial income fairly quickly, right? So some things to look for, right? There's a lot of people who come in and they have money set aside and they think because they have money set aside, they should spend it all on marketing, right? Because they see guys on YouTube saying that, they do 10,000 pieces a month or 5,000 marketing pieces a month or whatever the case may be, right? They see those big numbers and they hear about other experienced investors. The problem is those guys are on chapter 10 when most people starting out are on chapter 1, right? So they're not ready to spend those dollars because they don't know what they're doing yet, right? So that's why I recommend them starting out with cold calling. Again, very low overhead. So it's a very low chance of being able to lose money on marketing, right? Because nothing hurts more than a failed marketing campaign, right? So if you start calling sellers, it's going to lay that foundation and put you in the best possible position to be able to take advantage of opportunity. And when you graduate to that next step, when you want to start making marketing a little easier and getting leads coming in, you'll know that you'll be a good steward of those leads because you can handle them properly.
All right, some quick responses or just shut out the answer. What are some dialers that you recommend?
So the dialer that I recommend is Batch Dialer. That's an amazing dialer, and it's very simple, and that's the reason why I recommend it. There's a lot of dialers out there that are very difficult, like call center level dialers, and it's just way overkill for people getting started. You don't need all the features, you're going to pay for it, and Batch keeps it simple.
All right, and I think earlier you said to get the list, to get started, the list for cold calling.
Yep.
Match lead?
Batch leads, yep.
Okay. What about, do they also skip trace?
Batch skip tracing.
Get phone number, so they do get phone numbers and emails and all. Okay.
Yeah, so batch skip tracing gives you phone numbers and emails. And by the way, I have some discount codes for these services that I can go ahead and send you so you can put in the comment section for your audience.
Well,
and
how about that?
They can get like 50% off their first month, 7-day free trials, discounts on skip tracing, so they'll get it all.
CRM. What CRM that you recommend?
So this is something that I'm very passionate about, right? So when people are just getting started, you want to keep it as simple as possible. Don't spend any more than $20 a month for a CRM, because if you do, it's going to be, if you spend any more than that, it's going to be overkill. You're going to get bogged down and you're going to be worrying about having the best CRM and you're not going to do any deals, right? So you want to start out with a free Podio account. Okay, go to podio.com, create a free account, right? Just bare bones, basic. You just need a way to track your leads and keep everything in one spot. And that is plenty fine until you're doing like 5 deals a month or more. At that point, you may want to graduate to something a little bit more advanced, right? Because you're going to need it at that point. But doing your first 1 to 3 deals a month, you can just keep it simple.
All right. Now, as we wrapping up, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Advice I'd give my 18-year-old self: get into real estate sooner and buy houses sooner.
All right. Okay. So I remember that when we first met, I love you and Heather. You guys have always been so giving. Like, you know, I was curious about your operation, and you spent hours to go through all your charts and all your this and that. Your whole, like, you lay out your whole operation to us.
Yep.
And I think you said you have a free giveaway today.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So I have a free gift for your audience, because I love that they're here, they're listening to the podcast, and they've hung in there with us while we've gone through everything, and hopefully have gotten a ton of value. So if you guys would like to access my 5 baby steps to wholesaling houses from home mind map, then go ahead and text baby steps to 813-560-8319. Again, that's 813-560-8319. You're going to text baby steps to that number, and then I'll shoot back my free mind map. And what it has is it shows you the 5 baby steps to getting started in wholesaling and how to wholesale houses from home anywhere in the country.
Baby steps with an S, right?
Baby steps. That's right.
All right. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So thanks for being on today. How does the audience get in touch with you?
Yeah.
Through texting, or is there social media, other things they can follow you on?
Sure. So they can shoot me a text at that number too. The next best place to get a hold of me is on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Chris Logan REI is my handle on there, and I keep it the same across all platforms, and I'm pretty much everywhere so far, but Facebook is where I spend the majority of my time.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. If you learned something new, or just like the idea of making deals without leaving your house ever, share this episode with someone. And don't forget to text Chris. I know you're curious. So just go ahead and send him a text anyway, so that he can hook you up with his 5 baby steps to start your wholesaling operation. Lastly, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with more amazing stories and insights from our real estate ballers. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.